Today, we're diving into one of the most devastating events in all of human history. We're talking about a catastrophe that didn't just kill millions, but in a strange and terrible way, actually gave birth to a new world. This is the story of the Black Death.
Take a look at this number, just 1/3. It seems simple, right? But behind this fraction is a level of devastation that's almost impossible to imagine. That's what it means. In just 4 years, between 1347 and 1351, 1 out of every 3 people in Europe was wiped off the map. Gone. So how on earth did this happen? And what was left when the dust finally settled? Well, to really get a handle on this cataclysm, we have to start at the source. And believe it or not, our story doesn't begin in Europe. It starts thousands of miles away, with a tiny, invisible killer about to go on a journey across the entire known world. Here it is. Meet the villain of our story, Yersinia pestis. This is the bacterium that causes the bubonic plague. Its journey began on the huge grassy plains of Central Asia, probably in what we'd now call Mongolia. But you know, a microscopic organism can't travel the world by itself. It needed a ride. And the way it spread was this terrifyingly efficient chain reaction. First, the bacterium infects fleas. Those fleas then infested the black rats that were everywhere on merchant caravans. And as those rats hitched a ride along the Silk Road, the superhighway of the medieval world, they eventually hopped on to merchant ships sailing west. And this is the moment everything changed for Europe. It's October 1347. A fleet of Italian trading ships escaping a siege at the port of Caffa on the Black Sea pulls into the harbor at Messina, Sicily. They were carrying silks and spices, sure, but they were also carrying an invisible and unbelievably deadly cargo. The plague had officially arrived. So once that invisible invader was on European soil, the continent was just plunged into absolute chaos. The plague spread wasn't just fast, it was completely and utterly relentless. And what made it so terrifying is that this wasn't just one disease, it was like a triple threat. You had the famous bubonic form, which caused these huge, painful swellings called buboes. Then there was the pneumonic plague, which was even worse. It attacked the lungs and can spread just through coughing, through the air itself. And the deadliest of all, the septicemic form. It was a direct infection of the blood that could kill a person in mere hours. And you can just see how shockingly fast it moved. Within just 1 year of landing in Sicily, it had already torn through Italy and stormed into France, Spain, and England. By 1349, it was in Germany and all the way up in Scandinavia. By 1351, it was almost nowhere left to hide. It was just this unstoppable wave of death. Now, the plague hit the cities the hardest. You have to picture it. Medieval cities were crowded, they were dirty, they had no real sanitation. They were basically the perfect breeding ground for rats and fleas. So in major hubs like Florence, Paris, and London, the death toll was just catastrophic. Some of these places lost more than half of their entire population. And the final number? It's just staggering. The best estimates we have say that somewhere between 25 and 50 million people died. A number so large it's hard to even wrap your head around it. It was a population collapse on a scale that the world had never seen before and hopefully will never see again. So, when you have death on that kind of epic scale, what happens to society itself? Well, the very fabric of medieval life just started to completely unravel. For the people who were living through this, you have to understand there was really only one explanation that made any sense to them. In this deeply religious time, this had to be the wrath of God. It was a divine punishment for the sins of mankind. And that one belief shaped pretty much every single reaction to the crisis. And those reactions were born from pure desperation. You had groups called flagellants who would walk from town to town, whipping themselves in public, hoping to atone for everyone's sins. In the fear and confusion, others looked for scapegoats, leading to these horrific attacks on Jewish communities who were falsely accused of poisoning wells. The bodies piled up so high that mass graves were the only option. And death was so constant that it seeped into the art and culture, creating this haunting new theme, the dance macabre, or the dance of death. But here's the craziest part of the whole story. From all of that horror, from all those ashes, something completely unexpected started to happen. The world that came out of the Black Death wasn't just a broken version of the old one. It was something new, something different. I mean, the change is just incredible when you look at it side by side. Before the plague, Europe was locked into this rigid feudal system. But afterward, With so many people gone, workers were suddenly in short supply. For the very first time, peasants actually had some power. They could demand more money, better treatment. At the same time, the authority of the church, which had been powerless to stop the plague, started to weaken. That massive labor shortage was a total game changer. It gave a new sense of power to the common person, and it kickstarted the long, slow death of the feudal system. This whole upheaval forced people to think in new ways about everything, from medicine to science, and it helped speed up the massive cultural shift that we now call the Renaissance. And get this, for a tangible legacy. The idea of a quarantine, of isolating arriving ships for 40 days, or quaranta giorni in Italian, was invented in Venice as a direct response to stop the plague. This was literally the birth of public health as we know it. So, when you boil it all down, the Black Death was so much more than a medical disaster. It was, without a doubt, one of the most important turning points in all of world history. In the most violent and terrible way possible, it wiped the slate clean, and it created the conditions for the modern Western world to be born. And that really leaves us with a huge and kind of uncomfortable question to think about. When you look at the immense social and economic leaps that followed this unbelievable tragedy, you have to ask yourself, can true, transformative progress only come from the ashes of catastrophe? It's a heavy question, but it's one that history forces us to ask.